Hi all.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello.
Good morning.
Hello, Dorothea. Just an organizational thing. We agreed that the speakers will share their slides so that we don't have to do the whole next slide, please. Thing.
Yes, sure. Noted.
Okay, it's 10 o'clock. Welcome, everyone. We'll start in 3 minutes, just to give some time to join to the other participants. Okay, it is 10:03. Let's start. Welcome, everyone, to the third working group on the StatDCAT-AP revision. This one will be the last in the series, at least before summer. And today, the agenda is to take a look at the alignment of StatDCAT-AP with the statistical standards. So in the last working groups, we took a look at the alignment with DCAT-AP, and now we'll take a look at the alignment with the statistical side of things. before we get to it, let me just inform you that this working group is again being recorded. So by participating, you agree to this. And today we'll have three speakers, Christine Labudi from Eurostat, then Marco Pellegrino, also from Eurostat, and then our colleagues Henrikas and Dorothea from the Lithuanian Statistical Agency, and also the chairs of the Linked Open Data Community of Practice in the statistical domain. So with this, I give the floor to Christine Labudi from Eurostat for the first presentation. And Christine, you should be able to share your slides. Christine,
I'm muted, sorry. Okay, so in my presentation, I will introduce the different topics and questions raised in the GitHub issues. So I will talk about the distribution and specifically the idea to make the distribution machine readable. And then I will talk about best practices for grouping a statistical dataset into dataset series, linking a multidimensional and derived dataset, high-value dataset, and the best practices for describing discontinued dataset. And then in the third section of my presentation, I will talk about categorization of a statistical dataset, control vocabularies, and I will introduce the proposed new properties. And then Marco will follow with the SDMX presentation, and Enrica and Dorothea with the SIMS presentation. So in the current situation in DCAT-AP and StatDCAT-AP, we offer a distribution without a schema. So in the distribution, we inform about the link for downloading or accessing the file, but we don't know what is the content of the file. So for example, if we have a data set on an employment rate published in CSV, we know where is the file, we know that the format is a CSV file, but when we open the file, we will find a column like geo, time period, ops value, but we don't know if geo is ISO code, a country code, or a NUTS code. Is ops value is an absolute value or a percentage? Is the time period is a year, a quarter, or a full date? So that means a data analyst must open the file, inspect it, and write a code for parsing the data before processing the data. And as a result, ML pipeline or statistical tool cannot process it automatically. So if we propose distribution with schema, so that means we will inform about the structure of the data, the schema attached to the download file or access URL. And we will define every field in the structure. So we will define the name of the field, the data type, the unit, the control vocabularies linked to the data. And that means that as a result, any consumer statistical tool, ML pipeline will be able to read the schema automatically and understand or validate the structure of the data and load it directly into a system. So here, this is a representation of the different type of distribution. For instance, in the left part, we have a SDMX file. And so we propose to link the distribution of the file to DSD. So that's this graphical representation is not the defined one. So we have to specify what we exactly want. So here I propose a property OCMV conform to schema, but it seems that at the end we will rather use DCT conforms to. So that was this OCMV property had been proposed in the GitHub issue. So each distribution will be linked via a conform to property to a schema. So if we have a RDF file, we could link inform about the ontology, defining the RDF file, or the shackle shape that can be used for validating the content. So if we have a JSON file, we can associate the schema, the JSON schema describing the file. And for a CSV file, so we could inform a croissant in JSON LD, or a CSV. So CSV is CSV on the web, a table group schema. Yes, so we in the GitHub ticket we had a discussion. Shall we use DCT conform to or CMV conform to schema? So CMV is coming from a niche schema used for describing empirical data. And so it's not yet endorsed by the community. So we would recommend to reuse DCT conform to. So okay, here we have three options: reuse DCT conform to, which is at our opinion, the best option. Adopt the OCMV, which is more risky, or define a property in the framework of StatDCAT. So you can access to the discussion in this ticket. So there is a link referring directly to the ticket. Yes, in this slide, I'm illustrating how we could group a dataset into dataset series. So this is the result of the discussion with my colleagues from Eurostat. So our proposal is to reuse the data tree and group the dataset by indicator. So here we have the main indicator, economy and finance, then national accounts, annual national accounts, and GDP and components. And below GDP and components, we have a list of dataset belonging to this indicator. So that means that we could create one DCAT series with called GDP and component with members, which will be the statistical dataset, the DCAT dataset. So we and it will be also possible to define nested dataset series. So for instance, to describe economy and finance as the main series, with a nested series national account and a sub-series annual national account, and then the last level GDP and components. And so we could have one for the annual national accounts, one for the quarterly national accounts, and so on. And so in the ticket, in the GitHub ticket 13, so we ask the community to collaborate and to provide us some example of dataset series, some use cases for illustrating the specifications. Then we had one topic, one question about linking multidimensional and derived dataset. So our first idea was to group the derived dataset into a dataset series, being the multidimensional dataset. But after discussion, we found out that the most relevant approach is to link the derived dataset to the multidimensional one via the DCT source. And why not a dataset series? Because the dataset series capture grouping memberships, and but do not describe the relationships between dataset. So it cannot express the derivation from one dataset to its source. So the GitHub issue is number 18. Then we also have a question about the description of a statistical dataset being at the same time a high-value dataset. So StatDCAT-AP HVD provide two properties: HVD category and the applicable legislation. So the question is, should we describe the dataset as two instances or group the DCAT HVD and StatDCAT AP property in one instance? So our recommendation will be to describe, to use one instance for the description of both statistical and high-value dataset, unless two instances is justified by a specific governance or publication constraints, for example, for the publication in distinct data catalogs. We also have a discussion about the categorization of dataset in DCAT-AP. The dataset are categorized via the DCAT themes property, and we use a code list available in EU vocabulary, the EU data themes, that includes certain categories, but these certain categories are very broad and they are not always enough precise for statistical data. And we check the extension of DCAT. So in DCAT-AP HVD, they offer a property HVD category. In SDCAT, they offer a LSEAMS property. So the question is, should we introduce a StatDCAT property for categorization? It might be StatDCAT StatTeam or StatTeam. And our proposal is as a control vocabulary to reuse the classification of statistical activities maintained by UNSD. So a new version of the CSA will be soon available. So it's domain specific for statistic, hierarchical. And so this week we had a meeting, Eurostat had a meeting with UNSD that agree to publish it as a RDF file. So as a part of the pilot for dissemination. But we don't have yet exact date when it will be available. And one recommendation also is to classify the DCAT dataset series with the CSA. So it will enable to group the dataset by CSA category and dataset published from the different NSIs without having having to create explicit dataset series for grouping a statistical dataset published by different NSI into one series, and by inferring grouping based on the CSA. Yes, we have also a question about the management of discontinued dataset. So that's a use case from Eurostat. In the European Open Data Catalog, we have a number of deprecated dataset, but we don't know how to tag those deprecated dataset. So in DCAT, so not DCAT-AP, in the DCAT-3 life cycle, they recommend to use the property SDMX status combined with time-related properties such as DCT created, issue, modify, valid. But they do not prescribe the use of any specific set of life cycle status or code list. But they say, okay, you can refer to existing standard and community practices fit for the relevant application scenario. So our approach will be to request that the StatDCAT-AP Working Group ask for updating DCAT-AP, and we would like to extend the SDMX status to DCAT dataset, because no SDMX status is limited to DCAT distribution and to data service. And we also would like to link these properties to EU vocabularies called dataset status code list. So the question is, should we recommend this property as recommended or mandatory? And as a best practice, in the case of a dataset, discontinued dataset, and if this dataset is replaced by a new one, so we should also provide information between about the linking between the deprecated and the new version by using the DCT replace, or the DCT is replaced by a property. We have no three statistical related property: stat dimension, stat attribute, and stat unit of measure, coming from the first version of StatDCAT. And the property range of the property is a SCOS concept. So that means we should use a control vocabulary. The problem is that we don't have yet a reference or a comment, a code list available in RDF for those three properties. And we converted the SDMX cross-domain concept into RDF, so it is now a draft, not yet publicly available. And in the SDMX cross-domain concept, we have 30 dimension. And I compare it with the code list of a dimension used by Eurostat. And in Eurostat, we have more than 650 concepts representing the dimension and the attributes. And I checked the name of the dimension used by different NSI, and one example, work time, so which is one of the SDMX cross-domain concept. Is named sometimes work time or WKT time. So the naming is also different. So we will need a cross-domain code list for these three properties. And for the unit of measurement, so there is one code list under development by the SDMX SWG. So we have 3 tickets open. So our proposal would be to define in the future activities of the LOD community of practice different code common code list for dimension, attribute, and and unit of measure, or reusing the SDMX one. We also propose 2 additional property for this release of StatDCAT-AP. So we have what we call a conceptual variable that represent the combination of a characteristic and the statistical unit. So it is it means what is being observed. And this we could call this property stat measure. And in DataCube vocabulary, this is an existing properties represented as a resource with a label. So an example is industrial production per enterprise. So we talk about this need in Eurostat internally. So we say okay, that will be very useful, but for Eurostat it won't be easy to derive it programmatically, and it will require a further interpretation. And the second proposed property is a statistical unit that represent the type of unit observed, a person, an enterprise. And so we should use RDF control vocabularies, but which today doesn't exist. It is not yet available. So that's also a code list that we could develop in the framework of the LOD community of practice. Yes, the next proposed property is the unit multiplier. So now we have the unit of measure that indicate the unit of measurement, but in StatDCAT we do not support the scrolling factor applying to the value, the unit multiplier. So example, if the unit is here, the multiplier might be decade. And the approach will be to reuse the existing SDMX cross-domain code list, unit multiplier, not yet available as RDF control vocabularies. So the prerequisite will be to get the agreement from the SDMX standard working group for transforming this multiplier code list into a RDF code list. Okay, this is my last slide. So there is a number of proposals that we cannot achieve in the current timing. Then we propose to integrate the activities in the planning of the LOD community of practice. So because some of them are now out of scopes, and also for updating the StatDCAT-AP specification annexes. So we could integrate the harmonization of StatDCAT-AP control vocabularies, aligning the naming and the definition of dimension, attributes, unit. Then the second activity will be the enhancement of the mapping between SDMX and StatDCAT-AP. And the last activity could be the integration of quality metadata from SIMS with statistical datasets. Okay.
Thank you, Christine. I would allow a few questions now. just to have the question and answers close to the presentation. So is there any, there is some chatter in the chat, and are there any other questions, comments? Yes, Dorothea, please.
For me, I have the question about the idea of using CSA instead of DCAT theme. As I understand, you want to omit the DCAT theme completely, or maybe need some clarification on the suggestion.
No, I don't want to remove the DCAT theme, because if we want to be compliant with StatDCAT-AP, we must maintain the property, but the StatDCAT stat theme, or whatever the name, will be an additional property for categorizing statistical data sets.
Okay, I understand. Because CSA, in my opinion, it has it maybe is a bit more suited to statistical tables and data sets, but it has also a lot of vagueness. For example, in DCAT theme, we have a distinct topic of health, and CSA, it falls under demographics. In DCAT theme, we have a separate topic for that. Also, in CSA, there's a domain for cross-cutting statistics, which is a rather vague theme also. So I guess I have a question if using CSA would really benefit for StatDCAT-AP. I don't know, it's an open question.
Okay, so we can discuss this further in GitHub, where there is an issue open for it. And now more questions. Pascal?
Good morning. It's just can tell you that when we were designing SDCAT-AP, so basically we built on high-value dataset where they decided to introduce a new property with its associated control vocabulary. So for SDCAT-AP, we did the same thing. And basically, there's also another property, which is health category, which has also its own control vocabulary. So we exchanged with the people working on the high-value dataset category design, and we just decided to be aligned technically, just to give you this information.
Okay, thank you very much. And Harold?
Yes, I have a question about the CSVW and croissant variable lists. I think is very useful. I know that in the forthcoming health StatDCAT-AP, there will also be a property for a data dictionary. And I think it would be interesting to see how they approach it. And I think one of the issues they had was that in health StatDCAT, or in the European Health Data Space, many data sets are not public, are not downloadable, so they don't really have a distribution, but they still want to have this variable list attached. So maybe there it's a property of a data set and not of a distribution. So I'm not sure, but would be interesting to take a look at that.
Okay, thank you. And a quick reaction, Pascal?
Exactly. So for health sensitive data, we can say that there is not a distribution, there is a landing page. So basically there's an organism which is named Health Data Access Body in each member state. And this organization will facilitate the access to sensitive data through, let's say, a control process. So there's a distribution, but nevertheless, it does not provide any information about the structure of the data set. So there's a plan to have the variables. now I can just speak about what we did in TEDAS2 and in the health pilot project, is that we wanted to use CSVW with a property ADMS sample, but apparently now Commission is thinking about another way to go. Nevertheless, the requirement is clear. We need the variables.
Okay, thank you. So let's continue the discussions in the respective GitHub issues. And now I give the floor to Marco Pellegrino, who will tell us something about the mapping of SDMX and StatDCAT-AP. Marco, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. I hope you can hear me. I'm sorry for my voice because I have a cold, so it won't be perfect. Thanks, Christine, for the presentation. Very informative because in the past, I haven't been so close to the DCAT development or more on the side of SDMX, so it's always good to speak to Christine, to receive many insights and much information about how the thing is seen from the DCAT-AP point of view. My point was just on the mapping between SDMX and the StatDCAT. I think you have the slides. Well, basically, I
Okay, do you want to share your slides or should I?
Well, I think you can start from the slide with the annex A of the certification. I think it was the number 27. Oh yes, that's it. I'll tell you when to go on. Thanks. So basically, in the draft specification, there is this mapping between SDMX and StatDCAT-AP, which is broadly taken from what existed in the version 1. This mapping was produced together with Max Deckers and Chris Nelson from the on the SDMX side. Unfortunately, none of them are involved in this exercise. I think at least Chris is completely retired, and I think the same thing is for Max. But it was done thanks to them, so thanks to people who knew very well, respectively, what happened in the DCAT world and in the SDMX world. I tried to get in touch with the technical working group of SDMX, but unfortunately they are preparing the next face-to-face meeting, which will happen in June. So I received just some informal feedback, but nothing too precise. So I can tell you that probably a more detailed feedback will arrive only when the new StatDCAT will be in the public review phase, which is not too late, but anyway, we need to wait until mid-June or end of June to receive a detailed feedback. What I was presenting was simply the previous mapping and some ideas. You can go to the next slide because basically what we were presenting in the previous word was, I think there was some animation here, but okay, it doesn't matter much. There was a schematic view of the construct in the SDMX information model that can be used to aid data discovery. And yes, perfect, you can advance. The important thing is that in the SDMX information model, the data flow is a conceptual data set. It links to data structure and data providers, and the SDMX data flow maps perfectly to the DCAT data set. I see that there is an issue on the GitHub, I think it's number 25, where Christine points to some implementation which linked the data flow to the distribution, but this is let's say in contradiction with not only with SDMX but also with the StatDCAT specification themselves, because the data flow rather points to the data set. If you go to the following slide, it's clear that the StatDCAT-AP dataset maps to the SDMX data flow, and the DCAT distribution maps rather to the SDMX provision agreement, which links data provider with the data flow. I think that this kind of mapping, which was produced in 2016, is still valid after the SDMX 3, but we will see this in detail with my colleagues, or my former colleagues on the TWG in June. But I think we can fairly anticipate that this there's no change with the introduction of SDMX 3.0. This is still valid, so we should continue with this kind of high-level mapping. There might be some possible misunderstanding from a DCAT point of view when we talk about the DCAT category scheme. Of course, there is formally nothing called category scheme in DCAT. This is a mapping between SDMX and DCAT, and we say that the DCAT list of themes map to the DCAT to the category scheme in SDMX. We could make this clearer in the diagram, but I think the diagram is still basically valid, at least from my point of view, from the first feedback I got. There are other people. I think also Laura Vignola is on the call. She was working also together with me on the SDMX ontology, but I think we can conclude this high-level mapping can still be considered as valid. If we go on, there was some discussion in the previous round of the StatDCAT version 1 on the approach between StatDCAT-AP and SDMX. There was an approach on the data where we should make clear that the StatDCAT is about metadata, is a metadata standard, it's something which can help to make your metadata more visible. About the availability of data, this is an open issue because we should also convert the data in linked open data format, but this is another issue, another project. It's not something we can solve with StatDCAT. So in this case, we would need a transformation of the SDMX data in linked open data standard, and we could go through the data queue, which is an RDF data queue vocabulary, which is, by the way, under redevelopment. So maybe we should get in touch with the group which is supposed to work on the new data queue vocabulary. What is more important in the following slide is a StatDCAT approach about metadata, because in this case, there is the option of producing a metadata set based on what already exists in SDMX. So we already have in SDMX metadata maintained in some SDMX repositories, which can be the SDMX registries or the SDMX registries, plural, or any metadata repository like the one maintained by Eurostat, which is modeled according to SIMS. So let's say there's the option of producing more or less automatically the metadata, reusing the metadata we already have, following the StatDCAT specification. But in this case, there is the issue which was raised already last time, 10 years ago, I think also by Guillaume from INSE, which was recorded on the fact that there is no modeling of the SDMX metadata flow in StatDCAT-AP. You can go to the next slide. And this was acknowledged by the StatDCAT work group, but the idea was that this should be dealt with in the next round, because we needed to introduce the metadata flow in the StatDCAT and link also with what exists in SDMX, where you have a metadata structure definition whose attribute give the allowed content of the metadata flow, and so we should realize that in SDMX we have a proper modelization of the metadata according to the attributes defined in the metadata structure definition. Until now, this is not possible in StatDCAT. What you can do in StatDCAT is to use a kind of stat quality annotation, but which means simply linking to something external. So at the end, you will get a PDF metadata report, which is not machine readable, is not automated, is not queryable. So this is the issue that we would need to solve. The last thing, I think it comes from really from the past, where there was some also confusion about the stat measure property. But I think this has been clarified. Now there is a stat unit of measure property. There's still the possible consideration of adding also the stat measure property together with the dimensional attributes to identify the individual measures in a data set, but this is still something very technical that we need further discussion. So I will stop here before saying things which are maybe out of context, because as I repeat, I'm more aware of the SDMX word rather than the pure DCAT and linked open data word. So I would prefer to stop here.
Okay, thank you very much, Marco. Are there any questions for Marco at the moment? Well, if not, there will be still space for questions at the end of the webinar. So thank you again, Marco. And now I give the floor to Dorothea from Statistics Lithuania to give us a talk on linking methodology and SIMS to StatDCAT-AP. Dorothea, the floor is yours.
Yes, give me a second to share my slides. Can you see my screen?
Yes, but the other one. So that's the PowerPoint in, yeah, this is better. Thank you.
Is that okay? So you can see the whole slide normally?
Yep.
Okay, so sadly, Henrikas could not join us today, but we would like to talk about how we're currently linking SIMS and methodology in the context of StatDCAT-AP, and more importantly, how this relates to the broader question that the community is discussing. And we will also reflect on the limitations of our approach and outline where we believe StatDCAT-AP could add real value. So let me begin with our current implementation, which is very, very simplistic. At the moment, we treat both methodology and SIMS as documentation about the data set, not as structured data. we do not attempt to model their internal structure as RDF. Instead, we simply link them as external resources. We use the property FOF page, following the DCAT-AP definition of documentation as a page about the dataset, and this allows us to, in a simple way, attach both the SIMS report and the methodology document in a consistent and a rather straightforward way. And this approach is simple, it's widely acceptable, and it's also easy to implement. And in our perspective, in an implementation perspective, it works well at the moment. And here you can see a concrete example. We have a data set, we link two documents, the SIMS report and the methodology document. Both are attached using FOF page. And in addition, we describe the methodology document itself as a resource. So we assign it a type, which is FOF document, and provide a human readable title. So this helps users understand what the document represents and improves the metadata clarity. However, it is important to stress that this is still purely descriptive, and we're describing the document and not its content. Based on this, we follow a set of practical modeling rules. SIMS and methodology are treated as documentation. Formal standards, if they exist, are referenced via conforms to. The landing page is modeled with DCAT landing page, actual data files as DCAT distribution. This gives us a rather clean and a constant structure, but this is where we need to kind of pause and critically reflect. What we have just shown, it's not wrong, but it is only the minimal solution, and it addresses the question I have to attach SIMS and methodology to a data set, but it does not address the deeper question. And the first limitation is that SIMS remains a human readable artifact, even though SIMS is conceptually structured. In practice, it is still a document, typically a PDF or an HTML page. So this means that the information is effectively locked inside the document. And as a result, it cannot be queried or processed automatically. And the second limitation is that there's no machine-readable representation. And SIMS contains detailed information about the accuracy, timeliness, and these are precisely the kinds of metadata that should be comparable and reusable. And the third limitation is interoperability. Across the European statistical system, many national statistical institutes, of course, produce SIMS reports, but because they are published as documents, there is no shared semantic layer. So this means that even though the structure is standardized at the document level, it's not standardized at the data level. Another important limitation is that we're not leveraging existing RDF vocabularies. There are well-established vocabularies for representing quality, provenance concepts, but in this approach that we're using, none of these are used, and metadata remains outside the semantic ecosystem. So why is this not enough? Specifically for StatDCAT-AP, because if we only link SIMS as a document, then it does not really extend, then StatDCAT does not really extend DCAT-AP, so it simply reuses existing functionality. But our goal is not just to catalog datasets, but to represent statistical metadata in a way that is machine readable. So we have to make the metadata usable. So what we could propose is treat SIMS as structure metadata. So to identify which parts of SIMS can be mapped to existing vocabularies and represent them in RDF. For example, quality-related information could be expressed using DQV. Information about how the data was produced could be represented using provenance models, and concepts and classifications could be modeled using control vocabularies. and where relevant statistical structures could align with SDMX. And this would allow users to query equality dimensions and compare data sets across countries and integrate metadata into analytical workflows. However, it is important to be rather pragmatic. SIMS is very rich, and attempting to fully convert it to RDF is a complex issue. So the challenge is to identify which parts bring the most value when made machine readable. Then the second direction would be to recognize SIMS itself as a standard. So currently we can only express that a dataset has a SIMS document, but there is a meaningful difference between that and saying that the metadata conforms to the SIMS structure. If we introduce a stable identifier for SIMS, we can express conformance. And this would allow systems to recognize that a dataset follows a particular metadata standard, not just that it has an associated document. The third direction would be to define a control vocabulary for SIMS quality dimensions. Today, those concepts that are important to us, like accuracy and timeliness and coherence, they exist only as text, and they are not represented as reusable concepts. And it makes it rather difficult to compare or aggregate quality information across datasets. And by defining these concepts as part of a shared vocabulary, we enable consistent annotation and we enable interoperability. So this would allow different organizations to describe quality in a comparable way and would support more advanced use cases such as filtering or benchmarking. So to conclude, our current approach, of course, it provides a minimal and practical solution. However, it does not address the core requirements of making SIMS machine readable. So we therefore see these different directions that I talked about, and we would be very interesting to hear your views, particularly on how far SIMS should be formalized and what roles that StatDCAT-AP should play in the process.
Okay, thank you, Dorothea. And there is already a question from Marco.
Yes, thank you. Actually, my question is for the whole StatDCAT group. I mean, starting from the experience of SDMX, where we have the metadata flow models, we have the metadata structure definition. The metadata structure definition doesn't recommend any precise standard, so you can set your list of attributes. So my question is, having said that I personally support the use of SIMS, and I've been working on the metadata standard for years at Eurostat, for me SIMS is a very important example of one possible metadata structure definition, which is used by Eurostat and from the European Statistical Institutes. But if we model the metadata flow in StatDCAT, we need to be aware that we are opening something which is a bit more generic. The question is how generic the StatDCAT-AP wants to be, because when you have a metadata structure definition, you may have another constituency, for instance, at the IMF or at the UN World, which creates their own metadata structure definition, their own list of attributes. So SIMS is one example, is not the standard. So I'm coming back to, I think, one of the first slides that our chair presented, StatDCAT and statistical standards, plural. there is a DDI word. There are many groups at the W3C level. So the issue is how generic StatDCAT wants to be. And if we are all aware, the SIMS is one very good example, but is not the only possible one. So for the future success of StatDCAT-AP, we should be aware of this.
Thank you for the question. It's a very important one, and I think StatDCAT-AP should be generic enough to support different implementations, but not so generic that we would lose interoperability. So we see it kind of as a layered approach, a flexible core combined with more prescriptive patterns for key elements like quality, conformance, shared vocabularies. But of course, it's an issue that should be kept in mind.
Okay, one possible approach would be that StatDCAT-AP is kind of the generic umbrella, and then for each of those statistical standards, there is kind of a module. It is clear how it is connected to the StatDCAT-AP record, but then there could be one module for SIMS, another one for DDI, and so on. And then we could see about possible mappings or generalizations of parts of those standards that are overlapping. So that could also be a way forward.
Yeah, and actually, I'm sure that also the colleagues of DDI or other groups, once the StatDCAT-AP 3 will be published, they will try to provide their own mapping to StatDCAT-AP. So let's say the mapping between StatDCAT-AP and SDMX will be the example, but I don't think, even if I'm a big supporter of SDMX, I won't think this will be the only possible mapping.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions to any of the speakers? If not, let me just remind you that we have the GitHub repository where we have currently opened issues where you can discuss and take part in the drafting process. As to the timeline, we still aim to produce a draft for public review in May. So please come to the repository, participate in the issues, and that's it from our side. Thank you for attending today's webinar, and we'll see you hopefully at GitHub, one of the issues, or somewhere in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye. Bye-bye.